Sweet Home, Alabama. Rocking chairs on wide front porches. Sweet tea and golden sunsets over cotton fields. A state that sells itself as paradise for anyone chasing affordable warmth and a slower pace of life. But there are places here that the brochures never mention. Towns where even the people who grew up there will not drive through after dark. In this video, we are counting down 12 of them. By the time we reach number 1, the brochure will feel like fiction. Now, let us begin. Number 12 takes us to the eastern edge of the state, right along the Chattahoochee River near the Georgia border. Lynette is a small town with a population of just over 6,000. Picture a quiet main street lined with empty storefronts and faded signs from businesses that closed years ago. This was once a textile town. The mills provided jobs, stability, and a reason to stay. But those mills shut down, and when the work disappeared, something else took its place. 20 years ago, Lynette was consumed by gang violence. Rival groups fought over territory in a town barely big enough to appear on most maps. In the early 2000s, local government launched an aggressive campaign to push out the gangs, and to their credit, some progress was made. But the scars remain. Today, the crime rate in Lynette sits 67% above the national average. During the day, walking through town feels safe enough. But once the streetlights flicker on, crowds gather in alleyways and on dimly lit corners. Locals will tell you to stay indoors after dark, and the population keeps shrinking year after year. People are not just leaving Lynette, they are running from it. A town losing people is worrying enough. But the next entry is a place where the crime is not leaving. It is arriving in waves. Number 11, Dothan, a city of roughly 71,000 in the southeastern corner of the state. They call it the peanut capital of the world. Picture a cheerful downtown with farmers markets, hand-painted murals, and families strolling past small restaurants on a Saturday afternoon. It looks safe. It feels like a postcard. But Dothan reported over 3,000 crimes in a single year, producing an overall crime rate of 43 per 1,000 residents. And the most disturbing pattern hides behind those numbers. Nearly 28% of all violent crime in Dothan is linked to domestic violence. Behind the closed doors of ordinary-looking homes, a cycle of abuse repeats itself again and again. Property crime here runs at roughly double the national average. Cars are broken into in grocery store parking lots. Homes are burgled while families are at church. It is the kind of danger that wears a friendly face. A city that masks its crime behind charm is unsettling. But the next town does not even try to hide what it has become. Number 10 is Alexander City, a place of around 14,300 people in Tallapoosa County. On the surface, this looks like a retirement dream. It sits on the shores of Lake Martin, one of the most beautiful lakes in the American South. Picture waterfront homes with private docks, fishing boats catching the morning light, and sunsets that turn the water to copper. But Alexander City has earned one of the highest crime rates in Alabama. The total reaches over 4,600 crimes per 100,000 residents, with more than 1,000 of those being violent offenses. In a single reporting year, this small lake town recorded 4 homicides. For a place this size, that number is devastating. Retirees come for the scenery and the peaceful image. What they do not see are the boarded-up houses on the other side of town, or the fact that violent crime here ranks among the very worst in the state. The water is beautiful, but what happens after dark tells a different story entirely. A lake town where danger hides behind the scenery. The next place does not even pretend to be safe. Number 9 is Gadsden, a city of about 33,000 people in northeast Alabama. Imagine driving into a town where the old industrial skyline still stands, but every smokestack is cold. Gadsden was once a powerhouse of steel and rubber manufacturing. the kind of place where a young man could walk out of school and straight into a well-paying factory job. But those industries collapsed, and Gadsden collapsed with them. Today, the average income sits 37% below the national average. The crime rate has soared to 290% above the national average. And there is a seasonal pattern here that makes things worse. Every summer, visitors come to enjoy the river and the remaining business districts. When they arrive, larceny and retail theft surge by 28%. Shoplifters in crowded stores, wallets lifted at outdoor events. The money comes in with the tourists and the crime follows the money. It is a cycle that repeats every year like clockwork. A town where summer tourism fuels danger, but the next entry is so small that every single crime hits the entire community like a shockwave. Number 8 is Tarrant, a tiny city of just over 6,000 people sitting in the shadow of Birmingham. Picture narrow streets lined with modest brick houses, many of them dating back to the days when coal was king. Tarrant was a coal production hub, built on the promise of steady work underground. But the coal industry left this place behind, and the promise left with it. Today, the crime rate here is over 200% higher than the national average. Tarrant ranks in the 6th percentile for safety, which means 94% of all cities in America are safer than this one. But one crime defines Tarrant more than any other: vehicle theft. Last year, 44 cars were stolen from a town of just 6,000 people. That works out to 744 stolen vehicles per 100,000 residents. Picture waking up on a Monday morning, pulling back the curtain and staring at an empty driveway. No broken window, no alarm. Your car simply gone. In a state where vehicle theft has been climbing for years, Tarrant has become one of the worst hotspots. A coal town where your car can vanish overnight. But the next town carries a history so dark it was once called the wickedest city in America. Number 7 is Phoenix City, population around 38,000, sitting right on the Georgia border across from Columbus. In the 1940s and 50s, this place was known as Sin City of the South. Gambling dens, illegal liquor, and organized crime operating in broad daylight with protection from corrupt local officials. It was so lawless that when a man named Albert Patterson won the nomination for Alabama Attorney General on a promise to shut it all down, he was assassinated, shot dead on a Phoenix City street corner in 1954. The murder was so brazen and the corruption so deep that the governor declared martial law. The National Guard rolled in. Soldiers walked the streets because the police could not be trusted. Imagine uniformed soldiers patrolling your neighborhood to restore basic order. Today, Phoenix City has cleaned up much of its past, but nearly 300 violent crimes were recorded in the most recent data year. The ghosts of Sin City have never fully left this place. A city that once required soldiers to restore order, but the next town carries wounds that reach far deeper than corruption. Number 6 is Selma. That name echoes through American history. The Edmund Pettus Bridge. Bloody Sunday in 1965. The marches that helped change voting rights across an entire nation. But today, Selma is a town in freefall. The population has dropped to around 15,500, and it is declining at over 2% every single year. Picture a historic main street where half the shops are empty. The bridge still stands as a monument to courage, but the neighborhoods around it are crumbling. Dallas County, which includes Selma, was the poorest county in the entire state in 2018 with a poverty rate of 35.4%. The median household income sits at just $24,820. In 2019, Dallas County had the highest rate of gun violence among all 67 counties in Alabama. And here is what makes Selma uniquely tragic. The relationship between the community and law enforcement is deeply fractured. Residents in marginalized neighborhoods refuse to cooperate with police. They fear retaliation if they speak up. And many have never healed from decades of pain rooted in the civil rights era, when the very officers now asking for help were once the ones preventing Black citizens from registering to vote. That broken trust means murders go unsolved, witnesses stay silent, and the cycle of violence continues without end, a town where history itself prevents healing. But the next entry is a place where the ground beneath your feet is literally poisoned. Number 5 is Anniston, a city of around 21,000 in northeastern Alabama. The violent crime rate here reaches 2,992 per 100,000 residents. That is 68% higher than the national average. Visitors and residents face roughly a 1 in 10 chance of becoming the victim of a crime. But crime is not even the worst of what Anniston endures. From 1935 until 1971, the Monsanto Corporation dumped tens of thousands of pounds of a toxic chemical called polychlorinated biphenyls into local creeks and buried them in the soil around town. They did this for 36 years without ever warning the families living nearby. When researchers finally tested the blood of Anniston residents, they found the highest recorded levels of these chemicals anywhere in the entire nation. Picture a mother standing in her own backyard being told she can never let her children play in the dirt. In 2003, Monsanto agreed to pay $700 million to settle the lawsuits. But the damage was done, and it was permanent. Today, entire sections of Anniston are so contaminated that people have been warned not to grow vegetables in their gardens, not to kick up dust while mowing their lawns, and not to eat food while working in their own yards. Violent crime on the streets above, invisible poison in the soil below. That is life in Anniston, a town poisoned from below and dangerous from above. But the next entry is the capital of the entire state, and somehow it is no safer. Number 4 is Montgomery, home to roughly 200,000 people. This is the capital of Alabama, the city of Rosa Parks, the city of Martin Luther King Jr., the cradle of the civil rights movement. And yet, Montgomery has struggled heavily with violent crime, recording dozens of homicides per year in recent times. What makes that number so haunting is the context around it. Other violent crimes in the city actually dropped by 25% that same year. Assaults went down, robberies went down. But the killing did not stop. 61 families shattered in 12 months. Picture the neighborhoods farthest from the Grand State Capitol building. Empty lots choked with weeds. Shuttered corner stores with plywood over the windows. Streets where a police cruiser is a rare sight. While Huntsville celebrated a 50% drop in violent crime over recent years, Montgomery could not follow. The seat of Alabama's government cannot even protect its own citizens. When the state capital cannot stem the tide, you begin to wonder what hope the smaller places have. The next 3 towns answer that question, and the answers are bleak. Number 3 is Fairfield, a small suburb of Birmingham with a population of roughly 9,700. This town holds a grim distinction. The crime rate here is 311% above the national average. That translates to 68 crimes per 1,000 residents, giving every person who lives here a 1 in 15 chance of becoming a victim. Within the entire state of Alabama, more than 99% of communities are safer than Fairfield. The town was built on the back of United States Steel. When the steel plants closed, Fairfield lost its reason to exist. Today, over 30% of residents live below the poverty line. There are almost no businesses left and almost no jobs. Residents describe a place with no police patrols and no meaningful change year after year. They call the safety horrible, say that crime touches every measurable category, and that it is impossible to feel truly safe anywhere in the city. Picture a quiet residential street where every third house is boarded up, where no patrol car passes all night, and where your odds of becoming a victim are 1 in 15. Those are not numbers on a screen. Those are numbers people carry with them every time they lock the door. 1 in 15 in Fairfield. And yet there are 2 places in Alabama even worse. Number 2 is Pritchard, a suburb of Mobile in southern Alabama with a population of around 18,000. The overall crime rate here sits 135% above the national average. Violent crime specifically runs 214% higher. Over the past 5 years, jobs in Pritchard have disappeared at a rate of nearly 17%, one of the steepest declines anywhere in the country. During that same period, employment across the rest of America grew by over 6%. The median household income in Pritchard is $25,818, which is less than half of what the average American family earns. More than 30% of the population lives in poverty. Infrastructure is crumbling. Pensions are in crisis, and residents keep leaving whenever they can. Pritchard was ranked as the 12th worst place to live in the entire United States. But the people still here are not staying by choice. Picture a neighborhood where every other home stands vacant with overgrown yards, where the nearest grocery store closed years ago, and where the closest hospital is a 30-minute drive away. Leaving costs more money than most families in Pritchard will see in a year. Pritchard is a place where escape is too expensive for the people who need it most. But there is one town in Alabama that sits above all of them. Number 1 is Bessemer. Population roughly 24,700, just west of Birmingham. It was named after Sir Henry Bessemer, the English inventor who revolutionized steel production in the 1800s. A British name stamped onto what has become one of the most dangerous places in America. Bessemer has a crime index of 0 out of 100, meaning it is safer than 0% of cities across the entire United States. Not 1%. 0. The violent crime rate reaches 33.1 per 1,000 residents, which is roughly 6 times the national median. The overall crime rate climbs to 102 per 1,000. The property crime rate alone sits 4 times higher than the national median. Aggravated assaults and gun violence fill the police blotter week after week. The surrounding area is a known drug trafficking corridor, feeding a cycle of crime that local law enforcement simply cannot contain. In recent years, while major hubs like Birmingham reported notable drops in homicides and the state saw an overall 13.7% drop in violent crime, Bessemer did not follow. Its industrial pockets continued to struggle with gang activity and aggravated assaults as if the progress everywhere else had passed it by completely. Bessemer was ranked as the 6th worst place to live in the entire country, and the single worst place to live in Alabama. The iron and steel industry that built this city is gone. The jobs vanished decades ago. The storefronts are boarded shut. What remains are blocks of rusting factories with broken windows, overgrown lots where homes used to stand, and streets where a crime occurs on average once every 4 hours and 8 minutes. The projected cost of crime to this community in 2025 alone was over $37 million. That is $737 extracted from every single resident in a town where most people can barely afford rent. Picture a clock ticking in the background. Every 4 hours and 8 minutes, another incident. Another victim. Another family changed forever. And in Bessemer, roughly 1 in every 10 residents will become the victim of a crime this year. Not over a decade, not over a lifetime, this year.